Story 1. Someone attempted to set my house on fire with my pets inside. They threatened my entire family, from my infant to my grandmother. They contacted my workplace spreading falsehoods in an effort to get me fired. They destroyed my clothes and broke my computer. They threw my cosmetics into the bathtub and filled it with water. There is more, but I am exhausted. Believe it or not, this was all a desperate attempt to get me to reconsider the relationship. It's outrageous. I still hope they get better. Story 2. He stalked me for 8 years. I moved, blocked him from everything, got off social media, and continued to block every new email and number he created. He even messaged my parents and left chocolates on their doorstep a year later. The last I heard from him was when I went overseas and started a messaging account. I woke up one day to multiple voicemails from him crying and asking for another chance. It was not endearing. It was unsettling. Story 3. She broke up with me because she felt we wanted different things from life. 3 days later, she tried to invite the guy she cheated on me with into my apartment to cook dinner for him. She thought I was away that night. When I came home from work and saw her preparing dessert, I realized what was happening and discovered her infidelity. Story 4. An ex-boyfriend, if you want to call him that, sent me unsolicited nude photos of himself and another woman in an unusual wooden barrel bath. Story 5. She spread lies about me to deliberately hurt me and make me lose friends. She told people I hit her, cheated on her, sexually assaulted her, and constantly lied to her. Fortunately, she came to her senses a few months later and admitted to many that she had lied just to hurt me, but I still lost a lot of old friends during that time. Story 6. Tell me he was watching me through the windows. He guessed my Facebook password and messaged multiple people, telling them I had a sexually transmitted infection. I found out that he had cheated on me, which I suspected but he always denied. Until we split up, when he admitted that this girl's child could be his. I also found out he made a move on my cousin when we were together. She was 15 at the time. He reported me to social services 7 times in 4 years. They always said it was anonymous, but they only mentioned the child we had together, not the one I had a couple of years after we split. He reported me for benefit fraud, meaning my house was being watched. Interestingly, nothing came of it because I was doing nothing wrong. He took our son and refused to bring him home. I had to trick him into bringing him back, and then he said he could take me to court to sort out custody. Apparently, he was going for full custody, but his solicitor must have told him he had no chance, as all he asked for was what he had before he took our son. 2 weeks after court, he had to reduce his visitation days. He has never paid child maintenance and somehow doesn't need to, according to the Child Maintenance Service, despite him and his wife working full-time. He seems to have backed off now, but I have a baby due in a couple of months, and that's usually the kind of thing that triggers it off again, such as social services and calls from unknown numbers in the middle of the night. Story 7. After leaving me for another woman, my ex-boyfriend used my Google Pay account from a phone I gave him to buy her engagement ring. I was literally sick. Story 8. I had an ex break into my house while I was living with my parents and poke holes in all of my condoms. Luckily, one of her friends was not nearly as erratic and informed me. Story 9. He began calling my workplace repeatedly in an attempt to get me fired. I ended up blocking him on every platform available. Fortunately, my supervisor was very understanding and recognized that his claims were unfounded. He still creates fake profiles occasionally to look me up on LinkedIn. Story 10. My ex-fiancé is the one who said he had fallen out of love with me and decided to end things. That same night, he packed a bag and left. Despite this, he continued to stalk and harass me for 4 months. He also turned our mutual friends against me. He was probably upset that I decided not to chase him and beg for him to come back. Story 11. Scratched asshole, in her native language, into a painting that I made. I still have the painting. The scratches really complete it. Edit. No, really, it's a true story. It's painted on wood, and I'm not sure if I can take a photo that clearly shows the scratches. But I'll try. Story 12. Someone stole a number of my guns and attempted to use their return to extort a large sum of money from me. I didn't comply. Instead, I recorded all of our conversations and played along long enough for her to admit to taking them and agreeing to return them in exchange for money. I then reported everything to the police, and she was charged with 7 counts of felony theft of a firearm and 1 count of felony extortion. The charges were consolidated, but she still faced 2 felonies. Losing her job, going broke, losing everything else, having her credit ruined, spending 18 months incarcerated, and acquiring a permanent record were, in my opinion, a fitting consequence. Story 13. A girl in high school spread rumors that I had assaulted her, even though we had not had any sexual contact. It was so unlike me that nobody believed her. Strangely, it was more than a year after we broke up, and I have no idea what was going on in her mind. She lived in another town, so I never saw her again to ask. Thank goodness this was before the internet. Story 14. I had an ex who pretended to attempt suicide after I broke up with her. One night, she called me and said she was going to jump off a tall hotel building in my city. I was so done with her antics that I replied, "Go ahead," and hung up. Story 15. Emotionally manipulated me with false threats of suicide and attempted to persuade one of my friends to participate. Story 16. Behave like a completely different person, completely unrecognizable and cold, as if nothing we shared ever mattered. It was as though a switch had been flipped, and I had become a stranger to her. Story 17. Go no contact. My wife walked out to go to work one day, and that was that. I haven't seen or heard from her in 25 years, except when a lawyer she hired filed for divorce a few years after she left. She had every right to leave if she wanted, but it would have been nice to know what was going on. Story 18. He refused to give me back the laptop he had been fixing for me for 6 months. It contained all of my personally identifiable information, and I was later informed that my social security number was compromised twice. He also stole several childhood photos of me, including a dance recital photo button that he claimed he had pinned to his visor. What an absolute creep. Story 19. He immediately began seeing the girl he told me not to worry about. I saw them driving around together, having a great time with the windows down. Story 20. I attended the Stanley Cup final and cheered for the opposing team. The Pittsburgh Penguins winning in Nashville remains the most joyous occasion of my life for denying her that pettiness. Story 21. Had another baby as soon as possible, so it is clear he had her pregnant before we broke up. He left me to raise the children we had alone. It hurt deeply, but in retrospect, it was the best thing that ever happened to me because that relationship was toxic and dangerous. Story 22. She called me to ask if I could comfort her after the guy she broke up with me for dumped her after 2 weeks because he just wanted to have fun. Story 23. Stole several boxes of Golden Age comic books worth thousands of dollars and sold them for a fraction of their value to the local comic shop. Thousands of dollars worth of nearly irreplaceable comic books from the early 90s when you couldn't easily find them online for just a couple of $100. Story 24. I got engaged within 4 weeks of separating. She emptied my bank account, so I couldn't pay rent, putting me in $60,000 debt as letters began turning up demanding payments. She had hidden previous letters, and I do not recall signing for the original loans. She threw away family heirlooms. I could go on all day. Story 25. Relentlessly file court proceedings in family court. Once, he filed contempt because I sent different socks for our child to his house than the ones he sent to mine. The judge disliked him, and the guardian ad litem disapproved of him as well. They called him rigid and petty. She dismissed all his motions. That did not stop him from filing 40 motions and petitions in 1 year. I had to meet at a police station for custody exchanges and communicate through a court-appointed app because he would intimidate me, punch my car, or call me names in front of our child. He was dying of cancer, and 4 months before his death, he filed for full custody. How can someone who is dying and cannot get out of bed want full custody? He could not even manage the 50-50th arrangement we had. It was exhausting. As sad as I was for my daughter that her dad died, I must admit I was relieved. I could breathe again without looking over my shoulder. Story 26. He destroyed my car during the night, which caused me a lot of grief because I didn't have much money. It was impossible for me to repair it or buy another one. Story 27. Barged in wielding a sword. Threw away my social security card. Sold the motorcycle that was in my name and pocketed the money. Took the television, leather sofa, gaming console, wine cooler, and anything of value that wasn't secured. Charged 2 virtual reality headsets to my credit card. Logged into my bank account and took all of my money. Tried to steal my son's car. Continued to harass me online for months. We had 2 teenage boys, and he left halfway across the country. He probably still has a warrant. Good riddance. Story 28. He broke up with me over text, and I just let it go. Then he had a change of heart and wanted to meet in person to end things face to face. I told him it was fine and wished him a nice life before blocking him because he was spamming me on text and social media. Later, I tried a dating app for the first time. I matched with some people, but one guy was annoying and pushy, so I stopped responding. Suddenly, I received a long message that said, "It's me," and it turned out to be my ex catfishing me just to find me. I immediately deleted the app. That was not even the worst of it. Shortly after that, he got a texting app and started sending me abusive long messages that I didn't want to read. He threatened to harm me and sent multiple videos of himself with different women to prove he had been cheating on me the whole time. Honestly, I was relieved it was over, but I felt terrible for the women who were clearly unaware they were being filmed. Story 29. My ex and the mother of my children went to the youth welfare office to tell them that I masturbated in my daughter's bed while she was sleeping, smoked cigarettes in my daughter's room, used drugs and was an alcoholic. Even claimed that although I never harmed them, she was always scared that I would. All of it was false. I do not use drugs, and I do not engage in anything else she mentioned. Many people disliked me. We hired private counselors to monitor my interactions with my kids, and after a few meetings, they realized she was not telling the truth and that I am actually a good father. Unfortunately, the damage was done, and many parents at the kindergarten still avoid me. She did many things that crushed my spirit and self-esteem. I gained a lot of weight during that relationship, and by the end, she told me she no longer found me attractive. I am now in a new relationship with an amazing woman who loves me and my children unconditionally. We go to the gym together, and I am in much better shape. Story 30. Continuing to connect with me for weeks while pretending there was a future and that we just needed to figure things out. She simply did not want to be lonely until she found another partner. Her next partner took his own life weeks after their breakup, so there is no telling how she treated him. Story 31. I believed we had become friends. He visited our town once and I invited him over. He then assaulted me. A few years later, he had the audacity to speak with me and my mother face to face at a store, as if nothing had happened. Story 32. When I tried to give him a chance months after the breakup, we drank together at my home. He became extremely intoxicated, and I told him to stop drinking. He then called me derogatory names for being with others after him. He got angry that I told him to stop drinking, flipped my wooden coffee table upside down, broke my flower vase, and screamed insults at me. I remember this very clearly. I walked away silently, grabbed a broom and dustpan, and cried while cleaning up the broken glass. He left and slammed my door. Later that night, I received a call from the jail. He had crashed his car while driving with a suspended license and needed me to bail him out. Interestingly, when he flipped the coffee table, it landed on its legs and did a complete turn. Story 33. Talking negatively about me with my sister, he ended up getting involved with her. This was a man who had been abusing me for years and once nearly choked me to death. She was aware of all of it. Story 34. I was falsely accused of rape and it became the talk of the whole high school. This happened because I dropped her for my best friend after she made me choose between them. I told her to go ahead and report me to the police, but later she changed her mind. She realized her accusation would lead nowhere. Additionally, she burned and cut up all my clothes that were at her house. This occurred when we were both 16 years old, and now, a couple of years later, I reflect on these events. Story 35. She cheated and filed for divorce. We had 2 children together, so I tried to be civil and kept to myself, trying to limit any further hurt to my kids. Living in a small town, my job was flexible, so I moved about an hour away for a fresh start. I wanted to remain close enough to alternate days with the kids through shared custody, but far enough to embrace something new. After I moved, she told everyone that I cheated multiple times and abandoned her and the children. I still have many family members and friends in that town who know the truth, but she tarnished my reputation even though I never cheated, abused her, or raised my voice in the 10 years we were married. Additionally, she became pregnant during the divorce and had a baby 2 months after it was finalized, despite us not having sex for a complete year before the divorce. I had a vasectomy 3 years prior, but she claimed the child was mine because she was unsure who the father was and didn't want anyone to discover what had happened. Story 36. He broke up with me and then called 3 months later from a different number, saying he was going to kill himself. Since he had depression issues, this was not something I could dismiss. I had to contact his mother, who took him to the emergency room, but he wasn't even placed on a psychiatric hold. I was furious. Story 37. The very next day, she published a collection of pictures on a social media platform with the person she was cheating on me with. He was a close friend and college classmate. I mean, by all means, be with whoever you want, but I didn't need that rubbed in my face. Even more so because she turned a personal heartbreak into public humiliation. Years later, the guy came to my house and told me she cheated on him repeatedly with people close to him in public and humiliating fashion. In one instance, she was unfaithful with someone at a party while her boyfriend was in the next room. It was really insane what she did to him. It's been almost 20 years. I forgave them long ago, but that girl is probably cheating on someone right now. She causes pain wherever she goes. Story 38. He signed a form to destroy the embryos we froze together, knowing he put me through the physical, emotional, and financial struggle of in vitro fertilization when he knew he wasn't fully committed the whole time. Story 39. I leaked my private photos and any explicit pictures I shared with him all over the internet. We engaged in some adventurous activities. It's bad enough that occasionally my photos resurface in those communities. It's been years and they still circulate. Story 40. Had my car towed from my driveway and hidden in his garage. The police wouldn't take action even though it was my car because it was considered a civil matter. He must have been monitoring me too, because I usually only go out in my own car. The one time I went out for brunch with a friend, we returned to find my entire SUV missing from my driveway. I had both sets of keys as well. I also had his medically complex baby with me at the time who had just turned 1. I was more hurt that he would do that to her than to me. She had multiple appointments each week at that time. Story 41. He stalked me. He showed up whenever I was out and peeked in the window to see if I was home. I was going to file a restraining order, but then it just stopped. Turned out he found another woman. That was very frightening. Story 42. He falsely went to the police and accused me of stalking him numerous times after I broke up with him. My friends begged me to break up with him as he was physically abusive, manipulative, and treated me poorly. I finally found the courage to end the relationship, and I'm ashamed to say it was the hardest thing I ever did. Having grown up in 5 foster homes and 2 group homes, I had been a repeated victim of physical, emotional, and sexual abuse. All I wanted was to be loved, and at the time, I thought it was my fault when he attacked and hurt me. It took me a long time to realize I hadn't done anything wrong and that I didn't deserve to be physically and sexually abused by my ex. When I initially went to court, I was told I had to be on probation and wear an ankle monitor for a time. I stated I couldn't do that and would rather go to jail. The court held an emergency hearing at 4 p.m., where I pleaded with the judge to imprison me. My attorney mentioned that it was the first time he argued for his client to go to jail because I genuinely wanted to go to jail. As a result, I was sent to jail for 14 days, completely isolated from the general population. After only 1 day, I was unexpectedly brought back to court and released unconditionally, without bond, probation, or a monitor, as my ex had gone to the police again and accused me of stalking him, unaware that I was in prison. Upon my release, my prison files were erased, which led to the loss of my belongings, taking over a week to recover them. This included my car keys, apartment keys, and wallet. Luckily, A friend put me up in a hotel. Otherwise, I'd have been sleeping on the streets in the middle of winter. My charges were sealed, and my attorney mentioned they would be dropped. However, because of all this, I lost my job and became homeless, sleeping in my car or on a couch, and I even attempted to take my own life numerous times. It was tough because initially nobody believed me, as my ex held a position of power and directly worked for the second most powerful politician in my state. Fortunately, it unexpectedly worked out for me, as spending even one day in jail led people to start believing me, clearly indicating that I couldn't stalk someone from behind bars. Things are turning around now, and I'm finally getting the justice I deserve. However, it was an incredibly difficult and painful experience, and I lost so much. Story 43, 3 months have passed, and he still owes my parents around $1,500 in unpaid rent and other costs. He has now disappeared completely. A lawsuit is coming. If you want to mess with me, fine, but if you mess with my parents, who were nothing but accommodating and kind, I will make sure you regret it. Story 44. My ex-husband posted inappropriate images on dating sites, my work Facebook page, and various social media platforms. This is all happening 10 years after our divorce. I won sole custody of our daughter a couple of years ago, so this was the punishment he deemed appropriate. Story 45. We broke up because he wanted threesomes and I didn't. You know that period of post-breakup hookups? We were doing that for about a week when he said, "Oh, you left these jeans here last time. They weren't my jeans." That's how I knew he was already sleeping with someone within days of our breakup. We were together for 3 years. I had ignored messages from acquaintances trying to warn me about him with another girl from one of his hobbies, so it's very likely he was already cheating on me before that. Story 46. Stalking involved revenge pornography on Facebook and multiple fake online dating accounts using my real information and photos. I discovered this when someone showed up in my kitchen one evening with a bottle of wine, directly asking for disturbing sexual acts. My ex had provided them with instructions on how to enter my home. I was inundated with sexually explicit emails, texts, and calls from individuals using these dating sites. I began asking what dating site and username they had used to find me before blocking them. I contacted the dating sites to have the accounts removed, but more were created. I did not realize that there was a keylogger and location tracker on my phone when I first changed my number, which forced me to change my banking account information. I factory reset the phone and got another new number, but the calls and texts kept coming. I changed the number multiple times. Part of the ongoing ordeal included changing passwords, including two-factor authentication, extensive blocking, creating new email accounts while deactivating old ones, and significant time spent trying to deactivate accounts I had no connection with. I was uncertain who might appear at my home, which forced me to move. It was a nightmare for about a year, marked by panic attacks that woke me in the middle of the night, leading to the need for medication and therapy. This situation affected my job search and damaged friendships. My ex had my contacts and sent offensive and sexual messages using emails similar to mine. At a glance, it appeared the emails were coming from me, making it difficult for my friends to reach out and inquire about the bizarre messages due to my multiple number changes and deactivated emails. The content indicated that I was having substance abuse issues because of the breakup and challenging job search, despite the fact that I do not drink or use drugs. Friends who replied received even more disturbing content, with the most detailed messages sent to my parents, who were understandably horrified and concerned. The harassment extended to my parents, with my ex sending strangers to their home at odd hours. Additionally, my legal options were limited. I had a restraining order, but since my ex was soliciting strangers online to contact me, there was no direct evidence to prove culpability. This situation ended about 4 years ago when I moved yet again. I am uncertain whether my efforts were successful or if my ex has passed away. Story 47. An ex-partner left me while I was working, took all her belongings, and damaged my things. She broke the neck of my favorite guitar and took many items that I purchased with my paychecks. I returned home feeling happy about my promotion and raise, only to realize I had been burglarized. As I assessed what was missing and wondered why my ex did not respond to my text about the break-in, it became clear what had happened. The following week, I was evicted because the lease was secured through someone we knew, but she signed all the paperwork while I was also working that day. She colluded with the landlord to evict me since the man she left me for was a child predator. And her best friend flipped out when she found out, as she had 2 children in the same age range as the ones he had harmed. She was not too happy when I left a sign in the yard announcing that a sex offender was moving in on or after the date I had to vacate. It doesn't end there. Months later, I found a new girlfriend who was beyond my league. I have no idea how I even managed to be with her. My ex and her boyfriend had broken up in the meantime. My ex began stalking my car at work and tried to follow me home to find out where I lived so she could beg me for forgiveness. Unfortunately for her, I drove directly to my girlfriend's sorority house to pick her up after work. While I was on a date with my new girlfriend, I received a call from my ex's best friend. The chilling message warned me to watch out because my ex had shown up there trying to borrow a gun to harm me and my girlfriend. Story 48. I'm lucky. None of my exes did anything severe after a breakup. The worst one was when a girl I dated threw away my favorite hoodie instead of giving it back to me. Story 49. He broke up with me because he said he needed to be alone during this time. Then he got drunk and called me to say he was constantly on a dating app finding other girls. Story 50. Not me, but a colleague of mine was accused of sexually molesting his young daughter. It mentally broke him. He was a volunteer with children in the community and had to stop until the accusations were cleared up. He waited months, agonizing over the situation, before he finally got his voice heard in court and all charges were promptly dropped. It ruined his image both at work and in the community just because his ex was spiteful and narcissistic. I was accused of physically hitting my children by my ex, who was also a narcissist. When it was finally investigated by Child Protective Services months after the report, they left my home confident I had done nothing wrong, but they had significant concerns about the welfare of the children when they were with her. She was so focused on trying to hurt me that she forgot what was most important. The children. You don't want to be the bullet that your exes dodged. And stories like this make you realize which party was really doing the dodging. Story 51. I insisted on continuing to be friends immediately. Eventually, I was able to build a genuine friendship with her after some time, but a week after a breakup, I needed space to heal. She repeatedly crossed that boundary, trying to make me feel better despite causing the hurt. I ended up blocking her for about 2 years because of it. Story 52. When my ex's sister reported her to child services for neglect and emotional abuse, which I later learned she threatened the kids not to disclose, I was eventually invited to all the child services meetings, which my ex never attended. My ex twisted the ongoing case to say, "Your dad wants you taken away from me and placed into care. The children haven't spoken to me since." That was 6 years ago. Story 53. Kept toying with me afterward. It hurt more having her play with my emotions afterward, and she didn't seem to realize how it affected me. Story 54. She broke up with me after 3 years via text and had all of her belongings out of our apartment by the time I got home from work. She mentioned wanting to be free like a bird out of a cage so she could flap her wings. I never really got closure from that because we never talked about it face to face. She ended up getting pregnant by someone else within the next month. Story 55. She told me she shaved and went on birth control, so her new boyfriend could be with her without protection. She knew I still loved her. Story 56. Go right back where I found her. We met and hit it off. After dating for a few months, I realized she was spending a lot of time over at my place. I asked her if things were okay at home, and apparently they were not. She had no home and was struggling with an on and off heroin problem. Yikes, but I told her to come stay with me. She was already clean, so there were no withdrawal symptoms. Fast forward 4 years, 5 moves, a couple of involuntary psychiatric holds, wrecked cars, emotional manipulation, and revelations about how distorted my idea of a healthy relationship is. I'm done. She leaves. 3 months later, she got back on hard drugs and became pregnant by someone else. They got divorced a year later, and she's due with his second child any day now. You can't fix people. You can offer help and support them in fixing themselves, but you can't do that work for someone. Story 57. He told everyone he was skipping social events because I asked him not to come. I never said that to him, he lied. I think he was trying to play the victim because everyone already disliked him. Story 58. He stalked me to my work, college, and home. I blocked him everywhere, so he called me pretending to be a delivery courier. When I went out to pick up the delivery, he was there, just wanting to talk. He threatened to tell my family, which was a big deal for me at the time. Story 59. He told me I wasn't allowed to break up with him and insisted that we were still together. Then, he became a stalker for the following year because he wouldn't accept that we were over. Story 60. Came over to support me while I was suffering a serious injury to my spine and proceeded to interfere while I was on the floor. It hurt significantly, but at the time I just didn't want to lose the only support I had, especially since I couldn't even walk. When I finally left her, she told me she was pregnant. I did the right thing, stuck around to help, even though I wasn't living with her, and cut the cord. When he was born, she was offered our child and she told them to remove him from her sight. So I was the first person to hold our son. I visited every day after class, and then one day I showed up and he wasn't there. The nurse looked at me heartbroken when I asked. She had given him up for adoption without telling me. In my province, you don't have any paternal claim to the child unless you're on the birth certificate, and you can't request a paternity test to prove it unless you have paternal rights. Do you understand? Then she told me, we can always make another one. I fundamentally changed as a man the following year. Story 61. He always had trust issues because two of his exes cheated on him. He put two and two together and jumped to the conclusion that I was cheating on him too. He became so obsessed with the idea that he accused me frequently. I tried to explain to him for a month or two that I wasn't cheating, but eventually, I had enough and broke up with him. He assumed I started dating the guy he believed I cheated on him with. He told all his friends that I was a cheater and publicly shamed me on his social media. He called me derogatory names and threatened to share private photos with everyone I knew. I had never even spoken to the guy he accused me of having an affair with. I began another relationship a year after our breakup, but did not date anyone in between. Some people are just insecure for no reason. I apologize for the distressing stories you all have shared. I hope you have moved past the trauma caused by these hurtful individuals. Story 62. She thought it was cool to bring her new boyfriend to my grandparents' house where she was living at the time. She took our daughter with her and another boyfriend on a date. I have never met the guy, and she lied about the whole situation several times. I gave her 3 months to find a place to go after the breakup. She stopped helping with rent and damaged the property. I could go on and on. Lesson learned: no matter how attractive someone is, don't get involved with unstable people. You cannot change people no matter how hard you try. Just let them go and move on. Story 63. She told me she thought we should break up. I asked her why, and then I never heard from her again. Story 64. Walk up to me in public a week after she left and gave me a kiss. I said, "Hey, I really miss you," and she walked away. I only cried in the bathroom for 2 minutes. Story 65. She spread lies and said mean and spiteful things about me to our mutual friends. However, I was not the least bit surprised. She would speak negatively about all of her friends to me. Story 66. I started dating a heroin addict who would call me for help every few weeks, only to ask me never to contact her again the next day. He smashed her car windshield twice in an attempt to stop her from leaving. But when I told her sister about the abuse, that was crossing a line. Story 67. He stole the plate from my microwave. Just the plate. Who even thinks of that? Nothing else fits on the turntable. I couldn't find a replacement, so I had to buy a whole new microwave. Story 68. We never officially split, but we were on a break. She was acting strangely in the lead up to the separation. A few weeks went by, and one night I received a text saying, "Don't text back, but I love you and miss you." A few nights later, I received a call from her, but I was too busy playing an online game with my best friend to notice. The next day, I got a call from her mother saying she had crashed on the motorway. She went straight down the embankment and collided with a tree, killing herself instantly. When I spoke to the police, It appeared she crashed only a few minutes after making the call to me. Naturally, I have always wondered if I had answered the phone, would she still be alive today? It later turned out that she was involved with an older man, was growing to resent him, and missed me, regretting what she had done. The call was to apologize and to see if we could get back together. To say I was heartbroken would be an understatement. I've always wanted to know what she would have said. Story 69. Send me silly pickup lines. I became so obsessed that I had to call his mother to tell him to stop. To be honest, we were never even dating. Story 70. We broke up, but he came to me, crying that he wasn't going to be able to make rent and had no food. I, being the fool I was, offered to lend him money, swearing he would pay me back and make it up to me. He ended up ghosting me, and I found out he booked a flight to San Francisco to visit a friend he had slept with before. This wasn't the worst thing an ex could do after a breakup, but it was up there. Story 71. This situation is very disappointing. It also makes you realize how flawed we humans can be. I can't read the comments, and I probably have a reason to avoid getting into a relationship again. Story 72. Took me to court for full custody of the children. Fabricated lies and became a completely different person than the one I had known for the past 8 years. She lost. Cried continuously for 5 hours after it was clear in court that she would not win. Story 73. She has come back into my life multiple times. I ended up dating one of her friend's younger sisters without knowing. She told her friend and her family that I assaulted her. If you looked at us, you could tell that I could never gain the upper hand on her. She was bigger and stronger than me, and I really liked the girl I was dating at that time. She was adorable and sweet. We were a cute couple. However, my ex had already cheated on me twice by then. Years later, she showed up again the day after a breakup, and I have no idea how she found me. I ended up rebounding with her. What I didn't know was that she was still technically with a friend of ours and was involved with several other guys. Thank God I wore protection. At my last long-term job, she would show up with her new partner and try to rub it in my face. He was a nice guy and I warned him. They broke up 2 months later. She ruined several relationships and potential relationships. I don't know why I went back and slept with her again later. She became best friends with my ideal partner just so she could turn her against me, as she was like a goddess to me. Fortunately, my wife wouldn't listen to anyone who tried to split us up. They just wanted to get back with me until they lost interest, but after I met my wife, I would never go back to an ex. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.